Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Regan's Rugby Strength and Conditioning. Got another guest on that I've had on 3 years ago, and a hell of a lot's changed. And I thought it'd be cool to get him on again. It's Alex Deer. So the crowd roars. Alex Deer is here again. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm running out of the tunnel.
With Rocky there. That's why I got Rocky in the background.
Hello, how are you doing, man?
You got a ring on since the last one, I'm sure.
I have. You spotted that?
Married
It's
man.
been a while.
This might be more chummy than any other podcast, because I went to school with Alex when we were 11, and then kind of like now we talk quite often because we share ideas and bits and bobs. So this might be more chummy. There might be a lot of stupid private jokes. So sorry about that.
Personal stories.
Yeah, they're fine. They like the stories.
Okay. About like bunking in beds together in Italy.
Yeah. Oh, not those weird stories, God. not private school boy stories. Jeez, don't tell him that one. That was funny. Oh yeah, I remember that. Anyway, right. So, Alex Deer, I've given you a little intro on my stories and stuff. Why don't you give the guys an update on, not an update, let's say they haven't heard from you, who you are and everything about Alex Deer.
Okay, cool. So I heard this thing the other day, actually. Someone was like, so you were born and now you're here. Like, what's happened in between? So,
oh yeah, that's a long one.
That's what I'll give you.
My chocolate cake.
So yeah, my background is like, I went to uni, I studied chemistry. I started working as like a consultant in like a financial job. So like probably like had like an office job, like similar career maybe to some of the other like listeners. And I was doing that job, but to be honest, like one, I didn't really enjoy the work. I didn't really like see myself being there long term as like a career path. And like actually like the job was like pretty stressful because at any moment I knew I could be sent like anywhere around the country. And actually at one point I actually got sent on like doing night shift, and I was working like Thursday night, Friday nights, finishing on like Saturday mornings. And that was kind of the final straw where I was like, this is not for me. And like kind of coinciding with that time was like, I got into like training like seriously. I'd always been kind of into like rugby and football and sport and a bit of like lifting and training. But yeah, during that time where I was really like not enjoying my job and not liking it, I really got into training, as that was like my big like stress reliever. And that was like really big for my mental health. And basically at that point, I decided that like I wanted to pursue that as a career. So I went back to uni to become a physio, and then actually got towards the end of that and was like pretty disheartened with the job situation offers for being a physio. So went down my own path of creating my own online business, because I was like, yeah, this kind of career path wasn't quite for me either, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Because is the normal steps like an NHS type thing, or like working for a giant healthcare service thing, or is that the standard thing?
Yeah, well, majority, especially in like in like England and the UK, like standard path is to go into the NHS. And when you go into the NHS, like you have to do kind of 6-month rotations around different types of physio jobs. So like, I don't know if other people know, like physios who like run on the football pitch and physios who like rehab athletes after they get injured, like that's one area of like 5 different areas. And the other ones are all like hospital based, where you're literally like on hospital wards, like helping people like walk around the wards, make sure they're safe to go home, like helping people with like nerve injuries when they've had like strokes, helping people who've had like heart and lung like condition problems long term. And literally some of the job is literally like putting a tube down people's throats and like sucking stuff out of their chests.
So, yeah, that's the physio's job.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. That's right.
I didn't even know this until I got on the course, and they were like, yeah, you're gonna be like going to do these things. And I was like, what is that? I was like, I've never even heard of that.
Wow. That is a rank.
Yeah. And
Jesus.
And the other part of it is like you have to like go and work in these hospitals and like be on call. So you have to like go there and like stay in the hospital, sleep there overnight. And like if someone calls your phone, you have to get up in the middle of the night and like go and like suck stuff out of people's chests and stuff.
Oh, that's rough. Like me and Viv talk so much. Like we appreciate our job restraints and how free we are compared to people that have jobs, busy jobs, odd hours, odd requirements like yours. And like we appreciate so much that like we have our own schedule. But Viv's talking very loud. That sounded very what was I going to say?
I was like, I got out of the job because like I hated not having that freedom and that insecurity. And then I found out the traditional like career path for the new job that I was in was like, well, I could do a 2-year stint of like 4 jobs and only one of them could be the one that I want to do for like 6 months. And I was like, this is not going to be good for my mental health. Like this is not what I went back to uni for another 2 years to like do.
Because the uni was a master's, right?
Yeah, that was a master's. Yeah.
I like what Alex did from school is very similar to me. That's why we talk a lot, because I think we both did a kind of normal degree. I lasted a normal job for 2 months. He did a bit longer. And then I was like
2 years.
You did 2 years. I did 2 months.
But I mean, I was like 1 year into the 2 years, got onto my physio course, and then I had to like ride out the rest of the next year until like the next uni year like started.
Okay, so you quit, but you had contract to fulfill.
Well, I couldn't hand my notice in. I had like 9 months of being like, I can't tell anyone, but like actually I already know that I'm leaving and I'm starting this other thing. But like
I couldn't tell anyone.
No, because it was like I don't want to tell anyone and like lose my job because
Yeah,
so yeah.
Why not? Fair play. And then at the time, well, not at that time, probably 5 years ago, you were doing weightlifting and I was doing strongman, and you were kind of helping me with my weightlifting lifts. And then I focused on just training people online 2019. And yours was last year or this year, a complete transition.
So like my like path after then was like I had jobs in physio. So like I actually did work in the NHS, but like somewhere else where I could guarantee I'd only do the type of physio that I wanted.
No deep throating.
Yeah, none of that stuff. And then I was like, and then I went to like work in like private practice because like to be honest, like where I was, it was still like an NHS service. I was like back to back with like 10, 14 people a day, half an hour sessions each. Like it totally just like burnt me out basically. And then I went to private to like see what that was like and see if that was any different and better. And ultimately, like a lot of the shortcomings of like the systems were the same, like insurance companies dictating how many times you can see people, like dictating like how you could treat people. And like ultimately, like it wasn't a good service for the other person that I was trying to work with. And like I felt like my hands were kind of tied with like doing the things that I wanted to do and help the people in the way that I wanted to help them. So yeah, I did that. And then I was working like part-time there, part-time like on my own business. When COVID hit, I moved my whole business online. And then I still had like another part-time job. And then back in November, I went full-time on my own business.
There we go. And who do you typically help? Do you have a typical person, or is it typical any injuries, or who is it you're helping these days?
Yeah. So you've been injured a few times, right? You ever been to a physio?
Injured.
You ever been to a physio and then they're like, you need to stop training, you need to rest?
I actually only saw sport physios who were quite good. Okay, but the first one, I'll tell you what, when I went to a GP, when they referred me, when we learned to not do that, they said, just wait for 2 weeks and then come back and see if it's there. Yes, that was very, very common.
Yeah. So, a lot of the time, people I speak to, they lift, so they do some kind of strength training, and they do that maybe because they play a sport or something else, but like fundamentally they love like strength training because it helps them with like their mental health and their physical health, like helps them build confidence, helps them feel strong. You know the benefits. You've been doing it for a long time. So fundamentally I help like that group of people, and I help those people especially who've like been to see other physios like because they've got pain and been told to like either to stop doing it because it's dangerous, because that's something that people tell people all the time, or people that have like been to see these kind of physios who like don't actually understand lifting at all, because to be honest, the physios don't lift themselves. So they just tell you to like stop doing it, do some stretches, do some rest, and then try and go back to doing it. And ultimately, when these people do that, they go back to it and they run into problems, or the pain just comes back.
That's what I did on and off for years. And like I'm cautious with injuries. If my members get injured, I would think of something, and rest is like 50% of an option. But then I have Max, who works with us and works with our members, and he would always say, well, they could probably do this part, which to me, like clenching seems like nothing, but he was like, that would still repair, or that would help something in the hand. And I like that. I know you and Max both say, well, you don't have to stop, like there's still something. And I heard physios, the guy that I went to was really good, like a few like days after a kind of knee operation, he'd say, if you can get on the leg press, get on the leg press, because if you can, you might as well, like, otherwise you're just going to get weaker. If you can do it with no pain safely, then fucking do it. I was like, this is great.
Yeah, exactly. So like that was kind of like an experience that I had. Like I as you mentioned, like I was training Olympic weightlifting. I was training that like very seriously. I was competing at like national level like when I was a student, and like I got a back injury, and I was very fortunate in that instance that I managed to find someone who like understood like training and training seriously. And yeah, the thing that he said to me was like, I was like, do I need to stop doing, like, it doesn't really hurt when I squat and when I deadlift and when I press, like, can I still do these things? Like, it only actually really hurts like outside of my training, like inside my training, it doesn't really that hurt. And he was like, well, if it's not hurting, just keep doing it. Like you're probably not doing any harm with those other things that you're doing specifically if you're not getting any specific problems when you do it. So that was like the first time my mind.
He said that to you, sorry.
Yeah, that was like the first time my mind was blown, when I was studying to become a physio, and he said to me literally, if it doesn't hurt, keep doing it. So I was like, cool. Like if you, like you said, you might have had a knee operation, but like you can still bench, you can still row, you can still do pull-ups, you can still do anything in your upper body. Mm-hmm. And actually you can even still train the other leg. And there's actually strong research showing that like you get a 30% carryover effect from one side to the other, even if you do nothing on the side that you've hurt. If you do stuff on the other side, you've got a 30% effect going over to the other side, which is
Max said that to me. We did like a little podcast a while ago, and that stuck in my head. Or maybe he told that to me. Maybe he told me personally when I said I hurt my wrist. He was like, you can do the other stuff. You might as well have one arm weak rather than two arms weak. I was like, wow, that's great. Because my bro science when I was like 20 years old, like, no, you don't want to be uneven. Oh, it's bad for you. And I would tell loads of people that when I was a gym bro.
I mean, the reality is, like, you got to accept in those situations, like, it's going to get uneven. So the choice that you then have is like, do I have this one get weak, or do I have them both get weak? So you might as well keep this one strong, and then at some point,
mind blown if you're watching.
Some point, you can bring this one back up to the same level.
Alex is giving a uppercut in this if you're not watching the video. I think Max said that to me for my own training. I was like, yeah, you're right. Actually, the other one can still be normal and like heavy, and like let's say a weighted lunge on your good leg, your core's still working, you're still stabilizing. If you're in a good position, it's going to work like every part of your body rather than just the bad bit. So which is pretty cool.
And the other big thing about it is, right, if you, and this is where 90% of people's problems happen, especially when they get like recurring injuries, is they start training, they get hurt, and then they stop training for like 2 weeks to let that thing heal. And then they try to go back in the training doing what they did before. Mm-hmm. And what they're not realizing is in that 2 weeks, they've got weaker, they've got less fit, they've lost some of the strength and all of the like benefits that their body was getting from the training. And now they're trying to go back to doing something that they failed to do before and got hurt, but they're trying to do it at a time when they're weaker and less fit. So they're actually at more risk of hurting themselves and making it worse. And so they jump back into that thing, they get hurt again, then they stop again, and then they get in this cycle of just like, every time I do this thing, I have a problem. And it's like, the problem isn't the exercise or like the person's body. The problem is the way that they've done the training and the way they've tried to manage it.
I find myself saying stuff that older people were telling me when I was injuring my knees playing rugby, and I wish I listened to them. Like that exact example I learned from myself. If my back pops, I'm going to have a week or two off. I need an intermediate week. There's no point going to try and lift the same numbers again. So I need an intermediate week or maybe two before I would be back on the similar numbers that I was on. And I feel bad sometimes telling my members, like, whether it's injury or boys holiday or whatever, if they have like 10 days off and they're like, I'm ready to smash it, I'm going to smash it on Monday. I'm like, by the way, it would be a lot better for you long term if you just hit this workout like 80% rather than going to kill everything. And they're like, mate, I haven't been to the gym for 9 days. Are you mad? I'm like, trust me, man. Like, you're on my program for a reason. Listen to me,
there.
please.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I've been there. I've done it. I've tried to do that ego thing where you want to go back and lift heavy.
But it's also to stop them being demotivated when they can't lift as much, and then that's a shock. And then they go home at 8 p.m. and they're like, "Fucking hate it. Let's get a Domino's or something." So it's stopping two negative things from happening.
Yeah, it's much nicer to go in like, come out of that session feeling good about yourself, like you've achieved something, and two, kind of like you could have done a bit more. Not every session has to be like, I come out feeling like I've been hit by a bus. And then if you come out of it feeling like I could probably do more, then the next session, like, add more. It's really easy to add more weight or make exercise, like the program, more difficult. It's really hard to rein it back in once you've run into an issue, and then it's way more demoralizing.
Yeah, a lot of the rugby lads I get on who are used to rugby effort, where it's like you feel like you're going to die, maybe one training on the week and a weekend, and a lot of these guys haven't played for a few years, and they join the plan and they're like, Monday, I'm gonna fucking hit it, I'm gonna feel like a beast again, and they don't realize that I've given them like 30-minute easy workouts for the first week. They're like, oh yeah, it was a bit easy though, mate. I'm still sore, but yeah, it was a bit easy. I was like, yeah, because you haven't exercised for 2.5 years and you're 4 stone heavier than the last time you exercised. So it's like, it's gradually, and it's kind of like, I hate to slow someone down, but for the longevity of their training, one slow week is good, and maybe a week in the middle where it's moderate workouts is going to help them long term, because these guys also go in waves. It's like, now actually, if someone thinks about their summer holiday now, they're a few months away, which is good. But if someone's like, oh, I'm going away in 2 weeks, fuck, I've got to fucking smash it, I've got to go mental, and it's like a 2-week burst, like you said, either get injured or they have their holiday and come home, and it's like, oh shit, pre-season's next week, I best fucking smash it, rather than these yo-yos, because you're not going to have a long-term change. If you commit to a 12-week, 24-week, whatever week plan, and if you said, I'm going to do every workout, whether it's 3, 5, 6, whatever, 70, 80%, you'll probably get better change than if you try and smash every single one, because there's going to be an injury or there's going to be something else in the middle. And long-term commitment for the guys I typically help is the most important thing. Like, doing something for 3, 6+ months, rather than the yo-yo of Monday to Friday and then Friday go tits up, or even like a 2-week rotation. But that's like,
I'm the same, man. That, like, people say to me, I want to train, this many times a week. I'm like, with your training history, if you've not been doing it for a while, you've not been doing it necessarily that long, like, you can get loads of bang from your buck just from 2 workouts a week, or even 3. And they don't even have to be like hour long each, especially at the beginning. Like, just do something that's sustainable for the long term. That's way more important, because like you said, hitting that minimum threshold each time is going to produce way better results than, doing the ideal week for 1 week, and then it's not sustainable. So I'm not going to do that anymore for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, and people in rugby season, they want to train Friday night, they want to train Sunday, and I'm like, you're going to be fucked for your games. Like, the game is probably the most intense thing and the most injury prone thing. Like, a lot of I never say this word, but a lot of studies say that even you should have 2 whole days off before and after. Off is like not intense workout, which means that you almost won't be training all week.
Like low, like non-impact, like active recovery, like on a bike, like really low heart rate. Like it's literally like these people, like you'd probably feel like you're doing nothing. I literally did one of those yesterday because like didn't sleep great on Sunday. Like we ate some like dodgy food, I think, and we were both like, oh, we don't really feel good. Like still be good to like get some training in just to like feel good about ourselves, but like let's just go sit on one of those bikes and just like, you know, it's literally like a 2 out of 10 effort. Like sit on a bike, pedal for half an hour, go home. Like
so what's the benefit to you for that? Is it keeping your training times per week routine, or how is that going to benefit you with your weightlifting?
So I mean, like right now, I'm not doing like snatch and clean and jerk.
Okay,
like, that's
cool.
not a big focus
sorry.
for me. So right now, my training is focused on like I want to get stronger in my strength numbers, and I also want to be like aerobically like more fit, and I want to have low body fat percentage. So like I'm trying to kind of be like overall well-rounded and like in good shape.
Yeah,
I want to actually, this is a poignant point. I want to be like when I have a kid, I want to be the dad who can like still like take your shirt off, like look okay, but like also like get involved in any one of the sports that the kids want to play and like show up and turn up and not be one of those dads who's like, oh, I've hurt my knee, like I can't play football. Or
have you heard of the Rugby Fit program by Regan's Rugby? Yeah, that's very common. Not just the short term of playing sports, but a lot of the guys, if you're watching, listening, tell me if this is you. They want to play the sports, but they also, it's going a bit deep there, but they want to be around until they're like 80, 90, because some people live very, very unhealthy lives. And when I'm talking to them and when they're honest with me, the real thing that they want to be is be a granddad, or like they're thinking like 30 years plus, because whether a doctor has said to them or they know in themselves, they're so unhealthy that they won't live to the full life expectancy. That's like if anyone hasn't spoke to me, that's like the main motivator. So if that's what you're thinking of, you're not alone, but none of your mates are going to tell you, no one in your rugby team is going to tell you, because you're all hard nuts. But that's what most people tell me if they're living unhealthy. And sorry, I just went from joke to really serious there.
That's all right. So yeah, that's like I've got really clear on like what's the underlying motivation for me to train like recently, and like that's my big like motivating thing. Like I want to be a dad, I want to be in good shape, I want to be able to like keep up with my kids, and as they get older, I want to be able to play sports and do things with them. And like you said, that's like a common motivation as well for the people that I work with. I hear a lot of people saying that's like the reason why they train.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you a direct personal question from me about an injury. I think I've said it before. So you know my knee's fucked, right? Had surgery, never played rugby, it's been buggered on and off, whatever. So randomly, my mum visited for about 2 weeks. Wasn't smashed, but I drank like maybe 1 drink a night and drank a bit more on the weekends. But I ate junk. Mum was here, mum's home cooking, and like I was super unhealthy. I cancelled this podcast then because I felt like shit and I was borderline depressed. Anyway, is there anything to do with, since that, I cannot straighten my leg. It is absolute agony. Have I told you? Have I just told Max? I can't remember.
No, you haven't told me.
Is there? Yeah, I just cannot straighten it at all. And like I'm buckling and it is terrible. And for 6 weeks now, it's been the same. But there wasn't any rugby. There wasn't any pop. Is there anything, do you think, that's to do with like the really unhealthy weeks could, I don't know, inflammate my leg or some, whatever? You got any link in that in your repertoire?
The way that there's definitely a link, right? Because the way that I like to think about it is like, say you've got this bottle of water, right? And the bottle itself represents like how much overall stress your body can handle. And the water that's in it represents like how much like stressful things are going on in your life right now that are like filling up this bottle. So this bottle's like 3/4 of the way full. So like it's going to be broken down into, there's going to be lots of things that apply stress to your life. So like training is going to fill up like maybe the bottom third, like it's going to fill up a certain amount. Like how well you're sleeping, like sleep is a big part of recovery, like that's going to fill up like a certain amount. Going to be like, obviously it's not going to apply much stress if you're sleeping well. If you're not sleeping well, that's going to apply some more stress. And then like nutrition is going to be another factor that influences like your recovery and like how much stress you can handle. And then the other big one is like if something happens with like family, personal life, friends, like finances, like those things can apply a big stress to your life. So a lot of the time with the people that I work with, they sometimes notice problems in their training when like the training stress hasn't changed. Like the training is the same week in, week out, but sometimes they don't realize that those other bits and pieces have changed. Like all of a sudden work's got really stressful, or all of a sudden, something's happened to like a family member, and like that additional stress like can fill up the bottle, and at some point if you keep filling up the bottle with more and more stress, it's going to start overflowing, and we will run into problems at the point at which like the water bottle's overflowing. But like sometimes the training itself hasn't changed, but like all of these other things have changed, and that's what kind of like sets us off basically.
That definitely happened in February, so it's a very good explanation. But it's still bugging now, and it's annoying me. I think I'm gonna have to see someone about it. But that does relate to anyone watching, listening. I'm sure you've got a busy life, probably kids, barely find time to train for yourself. And I think the advice in that is probably maybe you don't need to add more. I'm putting words in your mouth here. You don't need to add more training time, but maybe look at the other parts of your life that could be reduced. Is that maybe a good follow up from that?
Yeah, I mean, like, so the people I work with, like, one side of it is the training, but like the other side of it is like recovery, because ultimately, like, you can train at a certain level, but if your recovery is like at level 1 and your training is at level 7, like, there's always going to be a gap between the two, and you're going to run into problems if your recovery is that low. So the other side of the equation that I try and look at with the people that I work with is how can we bump up this recovery side, whether it's with sleep, whether it's with nutrition, whether it's with like stress management strategies or like boundaries at work. Like all of those things can have a positive influence on like your physical health, but also like your mental health. And trying to find that balance, yeah, by sometimes reducing or removing some of those other things if you can control them. Like if you've got kids and you can't sleep, like, okay, I'm not going to pretend I'm a miracle worker and I'm going to get your kids to start sleeping and you're going to start sleeping.
Alex Deer hypnosis.
But like some of the things we can address, some of the things we can't, but so there is that caveat. But yeah, like sometimes it is about doing a bit less in training, because like we can't change this other side of the equation. So okay, cool, you're working 60, 70 hours a week, like you're not getting as much sleep as you would normally do, kids are not sleeping now as well. Okay, cool, we don't have a choice now we do have to take the training down. But bear in mind there's two sides to the equation, and sometimes you really can make life easier by working on that other side.
A few guys message me, or they get stressed out because they aren't doing something that's like a typical thing for fitness or for healthy fitness. Like, oh, I don't like vegetables, or I'm not getting 8 hours, and they're like really stressed about it. But it's like, if you can't change it, like, what's the point in being stressed about it? And that stress is obviously, now I've found out, possibly causing more injuries and whatever. But each person is individual, and if you get home at 11 and you have a different second job and you have to get up at 5 and you only get 6 hours, that is your limit. Like, don't stress about getting more if you're going to reduce dad's time. Like, you want to put the kids to bed, if you want to do Mrs. time, if you want to spend time with her, like that's not going to change. So just forget that box and don't look at fucking Daily Mail or whatever Instagram infographic is coming around.
There may be maybe there's other things you could do around like the quality of that, like having a pre-bed routine or like making sure your phone's not in the bedroom when you're going to
Hmm.
sleep. I like maybe that could bring up the quality, but like you said, if you can't control it, you have to accept it and you have to let it go. And that's been a big thing work that I've had to like work on over the past couple of years. Like it's hard, it's shit sometimes. But like changing the relationship that you have with those things is ultimately gonna benefit you in the long run.
I try to airplane my phone as I walk into my bedroom, and I try not to go on my screen for a while. I do sometimes, but yeah, that means that you're not flooding your brain before you go to sleep, so you can sleep well. So that the 7 hours you allocate for sleep, you're getting 7 hours, and not can't sleep for an hour because the last video you watched or work email is buzzing around your head.
Yeah,
It's very
definitely.
important. I told you we go on a tangent. Let's make this rugby dad specific. Right,
Okay.
here's the scenario. Rugby season's just finished, yeah? We've got a guy who has an ongoing shoulder injury, never done much, but also wants to, like, I don't know, lose a stone or two before his family holiday in August. What's he doing? What's the focus?
Good question. Look, I think depends a little bit on like history, right? If you're someone who's not normally been like training that much in terms of like, yeah, you play rugby, but like if you're not training in the gym outside of that, you're not lifting weights and you're not doing any cardio, like
Let's say that person, yes.
incorporating those basics of just like, a basic strengthening and conditioning program is going to be like really, really beneficial. And that doesn't need to be the ideal thing. Don't go on bodybuilding.com and do a bodybuilding program like 6 days a week, because you're not trying to become a bodybuilder. You're trying to get fit for rugby. So like 1 or 2 sessions of cardio and 1 or 2 sessions of weights are going to give, like, if you can do that for a couple of weeks, like 8 weeks in the lead up to the new season, that's going to give you way, way, way more bang for your buck than literally doing a load of bicep and tricep curls. Like that's not going to benefit you as a rugby player. So incorporating that is like a sensible program with sensible slow progressions over time to get stronger. And the big thing for like rugby is it's an impact sport and it's chaotic. So you want to be as strong as you can be around the shoulders, especially for your tackles. And so making sure that you're doing, some kind of pushing, so benching particularly, and some kind of rowing, like bent over rows, and potentially some like vertical ones like pull-ups, chin-ups. Like those are going to be your big bang for your buck exercises for like a shoulder problem. Um, if you're all right for me to talk about like a free that thing that I've got.
Yeah, I would mention at the end. Yeah.
So like in these situations, like I actually have like a system for like determining whether or not it's safe to like push exercise or train exercises in these situations, and like also like a system for like how do you adjust the exercise like if it is painful. So if you go to my Instagram page, Alex Deer MSc, Deer is spelled like how you write a letter. So like Dear Mr. Deer, that's me, not like Deer the animal. And if you go to that page and click the link in my bio, I literally have like a seminar where I delivered like the complete like inner workings of the method that I would use to work with someone when they have like pain. So yeah, if you want that and you want to use that in your preseason, like go for it, use it.
So it's like a webinar to watch. It's not talking
Yeah,
to
so
you. Here he is. I knew he'd interrupt me, little dick. Took a while though. Rocky just came in. Anyway, so it's a webinar. Sorry, because that'll be useful for me.
I delivered it as a webinar, like to a bunch of people and recorded it. And so now, yeah, I've got it hosted online, and literally, if you sign up for my email list,
Wicked.
you'll get that webinar. And as I said, it will give you like the ins and outs of the method that I would use, and it will also walk you through a specific example of like how exactly I would do that with a person. So it's super practical. It's not just like theory.
I'll try and put a link, I'm that guy now, in the description. You got a link directly to it?
Yeah, I have.
So people can go straight there. So go find him, go follow him, but also I'll try and put a link. This will be on my podcast and probably YouTube, which is cool. What was I going to say? I was going to have one final thing. Oh yeah, the last one I was going to talk about, which is probably going to wrap up perfectly, is fitting in your injury rehab if you are a busy guy. I know we just kind of said like maybe don't push your training if everything's too stressful, but let's say they're not a stressed person, but they are time short. I think I know the answer, but where would they fit that in, do you think? Where in their week, or before workout, or different workout? How do you think about that?
So I mean, I need to talk maybe a little bit about my philosophy about rehab, like to help people understand like where I'm coming from when I give this answer. So all of the rehab that I give people, I'm going to test you. I'm going to test your range of motion, and I'm going to test it in a way that I'm going to get a number that measures it and tells me whether or not you're like above normal, under normal, you know, whether you have the right amount of range of motion or not. I'm not just going to eyeball it. I'm not just going to look at it. I'm literally going to do a measurement where we say you've got this many centimeters or this many degrees. Or I'm going to do like an endurance test or a strength test where we're literally going to take it and we're going to do a multiple rep max test, and we're going to get a number to measure what your strength is. And then I'm going to compare it to the numbers that I have from the research in my system. So if I'm going to give you an exercise to rehab your injury, it's going to have to change one of these numbers. And ultimately, if you need to get stronger, we only need to do that 2 times a week. If you need to increase your range of motion, we only need to do that 2, maybe 3 times a week at a push if you're not progressing on 2. But like ultimately, if you don't have the time to do 2 sets of 5 reps of an exercise 2 times a week, we've got bigger problems than like you not being able to do your rehab.
Yeah, true.
So I don't give anyone anything to do every day. None of the people that I work with ever do that. It's all about fitting it into like their regular training. And it's usually like 2 or 3 times a week we're doing something. 2-3 times a week. That's all we need.
So you're making sure it is minimal, but efficient time.
Yeah, and then we've taken that test at the beginning, and then we're retesting it a certain number of weeks later, or maybe even every week, to see like, is this thing changing based on the exercise that we're doing? Yes or no. If it's not, why not? Are you actually doing it? And if not, okay, I need to change the program because it's not getting the result. And then once you can pass that test, it's like, okay, now I'm going to take you to the next part of the system. You've got range of motion. Let's check your strength. Let's check your power. Let's check, these other things we can actually measure. And that's one of the things that like most physios like don't do any of that stuff about. They're just like, put your arm up here. Oh yeah, you've got enough range of motion. Or yeah, push against my hand. Oh yeah, it feels like you've got enough strength. Like that doesn't actually tell us like left and right whether you've got a difference from one side to the other. Like we want numbers to back up that stuff.
We want numbers, man. We want the data.
Exactly.
Data gets us going. But monitoring progress, yours is injuries, mine's probably their weight gain or their fitness tests changing. A lot of people don't monitor anything, and it's like you need these mini wins, and you can't just monitor one thing. For my guys, it's not just body weight, because at some point in their 12 or 24 weeks, it's not going to move, or it's going to go up because whatever happens. Like you need to track that, the strength you're doing, how you're feeling on the normal day, on a training or match day. And it can even back down to habits like, are you logging your food every day? How many workouts per week? And then it should be, well, what I do with my guys, at least a couple of these pointers are always progressing. So it's almost impossible to have a bad week unless every marker went down, and there's probably some, like Alex said, there's probably some other reason why if everything like of the 6-7 things that you measure is going down.
This is a really good point actually. Like people don't know how to celebrate wins. Like people, like even myself, as like my business has started growing, like on days when like things are going really well and things are going good, like I don't know how to sit in like a positive emotion and like feel good about things, because I'm just not conditioned to like doing it. I'm
Really?
used to think, yeah, I'm used to like things being a struggle, and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, God, like everything's going so well, and I'm like, I better do something. It's like, why can't I just like sit there and just like be happy that things are like going well? So yeah, one of the things that I've worked on, and I really try and get like the people that I work with to work on, is like celebrate those small things. Because if you don't celebrate those small changes that you see over time, you're never going to celebrate the big things. And like whatever goal that you set, like, you know, whether it's hitting a certain body weight or losing a certain amount of body fat, or, you know, or hitting a certain strength number, those things come and go in an instant. And if you're not taking the time to celebrate those things, there's always going to be a new number you want to chase, or a new thing that you want to hit, or a new thing you're going to try and get to. So like celebrate the shit of those things, because you deserve it. Like you've put the effort in to get there.
And you might agree with me. You might have to reset the bar from when you were a super fit rugby player 5 years ago with no kids. Because if I'm celebrating compared to my lifts when I was a strong man, I'd be depressed every single lift. But I've kind of restarted the slate, and maybe now I'm monitoring how many dips I did, or how many chin-ups I did, or workouts per week. That's a genuine goal of mine. I want to train this many times, which 5 years ago I would be at the gym every single day for 12 hours a day. So it's the goals might change if you haven't, since you were last feeling your best and maybe playing rugby at your best and feeling awesome. But yeah, you got to track stuff and celebrate. Tell missus, kids might not get it the same, but tell them, tell your teammates. But yeah, man, fucking love it. All right, mate, I think I'm going to wrap up there. I just popped on Facebook and there's no live questions. Obviously, no one cares that much. But if you're listening or on YouTube, you can get in touch with me or find Alex on Instagram, Alex DEAR MSC. And if you want the free, how would we call that? The free something?
So I call it the Train Without Pain seminar.
Train Without Pain. I fucking love that. I'm going to fucking watch it, mate. No, wicked. No, that's been wicked, man. Sorry if there's been a few personal jokes, but I've known Alex since I've been 11 years old. And it's good to catch up. Any final remarks or anything, Al?
No, I think, you know, for the people that you're working with, you know, if they're coming off the back of not training for a while, trying to get back into kind of training that they used to do when they're younger, it can be very tricky and demotivating, like you said, because you've got an old idea of what things used to be like when you were younger. And the other thing is, like, behavior change is really, really, really hard. Really hard. You're gonna have to get super uncomfortable. You're gonna have to do things that like you're scared about doing, and it's gonna take time to change those patterns of behavior. So be kind to yourself. Celebrate those wins, even those very tiny small ones. Like maybe you actually planned your shop for the week, or you actually bought some fruit or vegetables. Like even if you didn't eat them, like those are starting to build the foundations of like better habits in the long run. And those are huge. Just celebrate everything, because every time you make a change, if you celebrate it, you're going to reinforce it. And you want to make that part of your patterns forever. Especially if you want to be a granddad.
A grand lad. Yeah. Behavior change, changing habits is very important to long-term lifestyle change. Wicked, man. That's been awesome. If anyone's watching the live, and you can comment later and I'll show Alex and I'm sure he'll get back to you. But I think we'll leave it there. Alex, cheers for your time, my man.
Thanks, man.
Good to catch up. I'm sure we'll do one quicker than the next 3 years. All right, man. Cheers for watching. Cheers for listening. Have a good day, guys.